Welcome to my channel where we cover the lore of video games. We cover all kinds from the mainstream to the indie, so I hope you enjoy your stay, and welcome to the Chronicler of Lore. When the Warrior of Light takes her next trip to Gridania, Emitra catches up to her because she has a few new things she wants to talk about. After your last encounter with the crazy summoner and the Ascian, Emitra had showed her research to her fellow scholars. They were excited, and of course they want to help her out with any further research. Plus they're willing to give her a few rare Allegan tomestones to help out. The information they have on them could be useful, and she wants you to go with her to get them from Rambros, which means it's time to take a trip to Mordona. Rambros is happy to see you, and since he sees you're with Emitra, he figures that you're there for the tomestones. Since they contain information about a few different summoner incantations, he figured Emitra would be the best person to decipher the hidden meanings in them. And of course she'll need you, since testing the new summoner techniques will require dealing with a few new primals like Leviathan, Ramu, and Shiva, which the Warrior of Light has already had a few run-ins with. Since you fought them, you should be infused with their essence, and as a summoner you should be able to call on their eggy forms, once you do the rituals at the right places, that is. The right place being somewhere strong in the ether of that particular primal's element. In this case that means lightning, water, and ice. Rambros is one of those people who know a lot about everything, and that includes places with strong ether, so he's the perfect person to point you in the right direction. According to him, the singing shards are strong in lightning ether, so that should work for Ramu. And since Emitra is extra eager to see more summons, and the place isn't that far away, you both head over to draw out a Ramu Eggy. The Warrior of Light performs the ritual the same as she did before, but this time it doesn't work for some reason. Emitra doesn't know why, but since it's not working, she can spend her time figuring it out in a more comfortable place, so the two of you head back to Gridania. Her notes don't have any answers either, so she dives into the tomestones to see if they hold the secret of the failed ritual. Even after studying them for a bit, she still doesn't have an answer to why the ritual failed. She did find some new spells that she doesn't think will be all that hard for the Warrior of Light to master in the meantime though. But before she can give you any information on that, a member of the Immortal Flames named Dancing Wolf shows up with a few questions for you. The Immortal Flames are hunting down Tristan, and since he's a summoner they figured the two people who were studying the art might know him. You do, of course, but considering the fact that the man died when you fought, Dancing Wolf will have a hard time tracking him down. Even after you tell him that the man is dead, he has a reason to believe that the man actually survived your fight, mainly because a caravan was recently attacked by a man with Tristan's exact description. The Immortal Flames can't let one of their former members run around ruining their reputation, so Dancing Wolf plans on hunting for him and dealing with him once and for all. And since if he is alive he's a tool being used by the Ascians, Emitra volunteers the two of you to help with this investigation. It would be nice if people asked the Warrior of Light if she wanted to get involved before they signed her name on stuff, but since she never complains anyway, I guess it doesn't really matter. Dancing Wolf definitely won't turn down the help, so you all head out to Camp Drybone or where the attack happened so you can see if the people saw anything. Since people die every day in Thanalin, most people don't pay much attention to a merchant's body getting brought into the area, and even some of the survivors of the attack headed off and got back to business as usual as soon as they were patched up. But the few who did pay attention said the attacker was dressed in black robes and looked like one of Ifrit's tempered servants. Since there's not much help you'll get from the town, the three of you head toward Highbridge, since that's where the merchant who survived is supposed to be headed. You find the man while he's in the middle of being attacked by the Amoja. You're in time to save him, which he's happy about, and he's extra eager to tell you all he can about the last attacker so you can deal with him. Granted, he didn't see his face because of his robes, but he did see that the man had silver hair, which means he could be anyone from Thancred to Sephiroth, but he did have a flaming monster with him. To make sure the monster is actually what you think it is, the Warrior of Light summons her Ifrit Eggy, which confirms that it is what the man had been attacked with. That does make it hard to deny that the attacker was Tristan, since not many summoners even exist. So Dancing Wolf heads back to Ul'dah to let his superiors know, and he wants you and Emitra to come too because he has some things that he wants to talk to you about. He wanted to let you know why he personally seems so focused on hunting down Tristan. Turns out Tristan and his brother Kahadan had both served directly under Dancing Wolf. His unit had been sent after Ifrit, and they managed to beat the primal, but most of the unit was either burned to death or tempered. Tristan's brother was one of those who got tempered, and since the only way to deal with tempered people was to kill them at that time, Tristan volunteered to put his own brother down. The man obviously didn't take it well, and he left the immortal flames as a completely different man than the one he was when he came in. Even after that, Wolf hadn't expected the man to go on a murder spree. But since he was one of his soldiers, Wolf thinks it's his personal responsibility to put him down. Emitra is okay with helping him do that, and she once again volunteers you to help because in that regard she's exactly like her sister. News comes in about another attack out in central Thanalan by someone who looks exactly like Tristan, so you all head out there to talk to the survivors and get some leads. Because everyone in Thanalan cares more about getting stuff for themselves than stopping a violent criminal, the miner who has information you need puts the Warrior of Light and Dancing Wolf to work dealing with some Spriggans for him before he'll tell you what you want to know. Once you've handled his little side job, the miner is finally willing to talk about the attack. He was in the mine with his crew working like any regular day when a man in black robes appeared and started setting people on fire with his pet demon that looks exactly like your FFXIV. He's not 100% sure why the man attacked them, but the mine does have a decent amount of crystals there. And since the guy seemed interested in them, that might have been the reason he attacked. The miner had made the good decision to run away when the dying started, but when he had finally come back, all of their crystals were gone. There had been a crate full of crystals on the caravan that had been attacked too, so what the man wants is starting to seem pretty clear. Why he wants them is 100% up for debate. Since he knows what Tristan's after, Dancing Wolf thinks it might be a good idea to look back on some other incidents that they thought weren't related, to see just what was stolen in those attacks. Finding out might just lead to something, so it's back to Ul'dah you all go. After looking at some old reports, Wolf sees that some of the attacks that they all thought were being caused by the Amal-Jah may have been Tristan. Honestly, since all of the victims were burned to death with no signs of spears or bows being used, they should have figured out that the Beastmen weren't behind it. But it's easier to point the blame at people you already hate than it is to do real police work. With the amount of crystals that he's stolen, it's pretty obvious to Emitra at least that this guy is about to summon a primal, which with him being a summoner unleashing a full-powered primal on the world definitely won't help better the group's reputation. The summoners in the Allagan Empire were looked at as heroes because they fought primals, but people started to hate them when they started using their powers for selfish reasons. They didn't all do it, but enough did to where the regular people began to believe that anyone who tried to become a summoner would eventually go crazy. That belief led to the mage hunts, and by the end of the Third Astral Era, the summoners were pretty much extinct. Emitra said all that to say that Tristan could revive that fear of summoners and end up making the mage hunts pop back up again, which means you need to catch him, so Wolf doubles the amount of people who will be guarding the caravans that are shipping crystals to give you all a better chance of catching the man before he does something really bad. Tristan's obviously not an idiot, because when the Immortal Flames put more soldiers out hunting for him, he stops attacking the caravans. So Dancing Wolf decides it's time to launch an attack of his own using a barely guarded shipment of crystals as bait. He wants you to be a part of the attack since your growing summoner powers will be useful in the fight that will definitely happen when Tristan finally gets caught. So you all head out to Camp Bluefog to get your ambush underway. Wolf's caravan conveniently breaks a tire, which does in fact draw out your black-robed attacker who is using an FFXIV. He shows up and immediately attacks the wagon driver. The Warrior of Light deals with the guy, but he wasn't alone because Emitra says a similar man had appeared out of thin air and attacked her too. Someone also popped out of nowhere in front of Dancing Wolf, but the man was so weak that Wolf is positive that he wasn't the one in charge of anything. Things get more weird when he sees the face of the man you took down. It's Tristan's brother who Wolf knows has been very dead for a long time. That should be impossible, but the man behind all of this shows up and it turns out to be the same Ascian that taught Tristan summoning magic, which makes him having a dead guy working for him make a lot more sense. He had planned on giving Tristan all of the knowledge of the Allagan summoners so he could go after the primals, but the man was too weak to get the job done. But he figures that the Warrior of Light will make a better tool anyway. The more you kill primals, the more desperate the beast tribes get to summon them back stronger than they were before. And as long as the Ascian gets them more crystals, they'll be able to summon them over and over again, disrupting the planet's ether enough to cause a calamity, all to help lead to their goal of resurrecting Zodiark. After he tells you his plan because villains just can't help themselves for some reason, he leaves and you all head back to Ul'dah to treat the soldier who got hurt in the attack. The entire mission has changed now since you're no longer hunting a rogue summoner but an almost immortal Ascian. Hard to kill or not, Dancing Wolf plans on finishing the thing off for disrespecting the corpse of one of his fallen soldiers. That means he'll definitely need your help now. And you'll need more power, so Emitra goes back to Gridania to see if she can get any more information out of the tombstones. Since there hasn't really been any more signs of the Ascian, Dancing Wolf uses the time to have a funeral for Cognate. He doesn't really know how to go about tracking down the Ascian, so he's stuck, but Amitra does find a few things to share with you, so you go back to Gridania to talk. While she was working on finding a way to kill the Ascian, she figured out why you couldn't summon the Ramu Egi. When you summon something, you use your body's ether to give it life and shape. The thing is, everyone has a limit, and if it takes more ether than your maximum to summon something, then the spell just won't work. In other words, the Warrior of Light wasn't strong enough to summon Ramu with just her own power. The Allegan summoners had came up with a way to bypass that little roadblock though. Instead of summoning the physical Egi, the strongest summoners would use their own bodies as vessels for the Primal's power, using a technique known as trance. If the Warrior of Light learns it and manages to infuse herself with the power of a strong enough Primal, Amitra thinks that it could let her fight the Ascian on equal footing, and she's already picked out the Primal for you, Bahamut. She is definitely Ishtola's sister because instead of trying the technique on a regular Primal like Good King Mogomog or something, she just jumped straight to the top of the list. Since Bahamut exploded during the calamity, his essence splattered over most of the people in Eorzea. And that was a sentence that I probably should have rewritten because it did not give a pleasant visual, but I saw it in my head and now you all will too, so you're welcome. Since everyone's been exposed to Bahamut's essence, the main requirement for the summoning has already been taken care of. All that's left is to perform the ritual at a place soaked in Bahamut's energy. That should let you enter the Dreadworm trance, which is a pretty cool name for a transformation. As for the perfect spot to do the ritual, Amitra thinks Dancing Wolf would know of one, so the two of you head back to Ul'dah to ask him. Technically, everyone knows that the best place for this is the Cardinal Flats. What she needs Wolf for is access. The place is jointly ran by the Eorzean Alliance, and getting access to it takes a lot of paperwork. At best, he can get you to the Immortal Flames airship landing. From there, you'll have to sneak the rest of the way in at night. It's a dangerous thing to do, which means you're obviously gonna do it. Since Wolf wants revenge on the Ascian, he's coming with you, so together you all head there and start the ritual. Absolutely nothing happens. The Ascian, who was watching you, because of course he was, thinks it's funny that you thought you could channel the power of Bahamut. If it had worked, he's pretty sure you would have just exploded, which would have been funny to watch. But since you didn't accidentally self-destruct, he decides to kill you before you get the chance to try the ritual again, which kinda proves that you not only could gain Bahamut's power without going boom, but if you did, you likely would be a threat to him. He tries his hardest to stop you, summoning 3 Primal Eggies at once for you to deal with, but drawing Bahamut's power from around the area lets you deal with his pets. The Ascian hadn't expected you to be able to pull off the summoning in the middle of a battle, so he is kind of impressed, and instead of continuing the fight, he leaves, since not even immortals want to risk their lives all willy-nilly. Amitra can't believe that you all fought an Ascian and didn't die, but with you swinging the power of Bahamut to some extent, it does make a little bit of sense. It was a good victory, but since none of you are actually where you're supposed to be, celebrating will have to wait a bit. Once you all get back to Ul'dah and realize that no one knows about your night of trespassing, only then can any of you really feel good about what happened. Wolf wishes the Ascian hadn't ran away, but Amitra lets him know that even if you had beaten him there, he wouldn't have stayed dead. It takes work to permanently bring down an Ascian, and she thinks she's figured out a way to do it. The fact that the Ascian ran away when you were out at Cardinal made her think, because if he's immortal, why would he run? From what she knows, the Ascians don't have a physical form of their own. They just bounce from body to body. It's the reason why sometimes only people with the Echo can actually see them. For the most part, regular people can't see Ascians when they aren't in a body. But losing their host body doesn't kill the Ascian, or rather it doesn't kill the stronger ones. Amitra thinks the Black Masked Ascians may not be as good at the whole body jumping thing as the red ones. When you fought in Cardinal, the only bodies around were yours, Amitra's, and Dancing Wolf's. And since you were all alive, the Ascian you were fighting may not have been able to take your bodies if he lost his. And if for some reason he can't get back to the space between worlds where Ascians tend to hide, or into a new host body, he may have died if you had destroyed the body he was in. That would explain why he used Kahadan's corpse as a vessel instead of someone living like we saw La Habrea do. That means that if you can lure him to a place with no other hosts, you can kill the Ascian, permanently. Dancing Wolf wants to get things set up for this final attack immediately, but Amitra thinks you still need something else that can make sure you can all take the Ascian down before he can run away. The tombstone said it was possible to let out all of the power of trance in a single blast, but it didn't say how to do it. She thinks it can only be learned from a forbidden book that's stored in the Great Gubal Library. The place is pretty far away, so she thinks it'll be best if you all head there immediately. When you get to the library, you don't get a chance to go in before the Ascian shows up to deal with you for good. And this time he brought friends who finally tell you why he's been so obsessed with killing you. His group works directly for La Habrea, and they're not happy about what you did to him. If you could beat their leader, I don't know what made them think that you couldn't beat them, but I'm guessing they're not using too much logic at the moment. After you give them a good old-fashioned beating, the Ascian realizes that he might have bitten off more than he could chew. But it's too late to run away, so he gets done in by the technique that Amitra claimed you needed a book from the library to learn. Turns out she was full of crap. No book even existed. You just needed to fight a little bit and you would eventually figure out the technique on your own. The whole lie was just in case the Ascian was listening in. Even if he wasn't, he would have figured out that you were heading off to hunt down some special bit of power and he couldn't let you do that. So he would have to attack you in that very remote, out-of-the-way, isolated, corpse-free place. That means the mission is over. The Ascian is dead for good as far as you know, and Dancing Wolf can finally close the book on the Tristan story while leaving Amitra free to get back to her research, which will eventually lead her to finding something else that needs your attention. But for now, this concludes the second part of the Summoner storyline. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe, ding that notification bell, and if you really want to show your support, you can donate to the channel through the link in the description. Until next time guys, later.